Hello, this is Dr. Munsell. It is about 12:30 Wednesday, January the 25th. The book still isn't in. So what I'm going to do here is you can sort of follow, you can listen to me and follow along on the slides because I'm in my office and the whole thing doesn't really work all that well. But in any case, well, I haven't been to the bookstore today, but I haven't gotten an email saying they're in, but I will go check this afternoon. But regardless, some of the things obviously you can be doing is all the weekly assignments. And I've also put up a couple of examples of the very first paper, and you could read those examples, and I hope that would give you a good sense of what the first paper is all about. And it's really about finding an article or a website out there, an article on a website that says, okay, here are some best practices using social networking sites or social media or computer media communication within a particular context, maybe something that you are interested in, a career context or whatever you're interested in pursuing in the future. But in any case, this second chapter is about privacy. What is privacy? Yeah. What's the difference between public and private? It's also muddy and confusing these days. But slide 1 says chapter 2 slides. Yeah. Slide 2 is basically this chapter is a big review of information about privacy management and uses a particular theory of privacy management, communication privacy management, and applies it to our understanding of the various usages of computer mediated communication. And there's sort of a cheesy little anecdote at the beginning of the chapter about some parents took a picture of their boy in a tutu and he got hell for it, but that's not terribly bad. I mean, but we all I've heard of instances where somebody put something on the internet or on Facebook, on whatever, Snapchat, and it goes viral. It didn't mean to go viral, but oops. Just like Britney Spears, oops, I did it again. But basically, there's some definitions again that aren't terribly important to me. That is the social networking sites. What are they? And how that might be different from computer mediated communication. Again, I think computer mediated communication is a little bit bigger than just social networking sites because not all computer mediated communication is necessarily social, or maybe it is, I don't know. But one of the things that the book does say is that different avenues of social networking sites are different, different sites, like Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, all the various, Instagram, LinkedIn, all these things are their own little cultures. So they all have certain norms of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, or what you should do in these given context or venues, and therefore they might have their own ideas about issues of privacy. Obviously, with LinkedIn, you're not going to put a picture of yourself from spring break. Hopefully, you wouldn't put that anyway, depending on what the picture is. But in any case, so each one has its sort of own norms and values in a sense. And I don't like LinkedIn. I do not like LinkedIn, and I do not want you to endorse me. But please endorse me. Endorse me about how I don't want you to endorse me. There is the book in this chapter starts off by just sort of laying out some guidelines for what we think about when we think about privacy generally, general modes of privacy, and it depends on the context, and a lot of this stuff is no-brainer in a sense. But basically, what they say is that there are certain situations where there are very closed boundaries, where obviously you're not going to give a lot of information to other people It all depends on the context. But there are also, some people create create thick, impermeable boundary walls restricting access. So there are some things where you can't get information. There are other situations and contexts where things are very, very open. And actually, I'm going to put a little a video that I found online about this, ways that actually you can make your stuff, your CMC, or even your phone a little bit more private, because a lot of us are not using the privacy settings as well as we probably should. And of course, there are sort of in-between situations where certain information obviously is concealed, but other information is not, so in between. And then there is some research out there that says that the millennials and perhaps younger folks tend to be a little bit more cognizant of issues of privacy than older folks. And maybe just that's because of the situation with not understanding the terrain of CMC. But there's all these different organizations and all these different sites have different privacy rules and expectations and what privacy violation means. And there's all these laws, obviously, that I don't know too much about. But the big picture here, as they're setting all this up in this chapter, is that we need to be very, very cognizant of issues of privacy. That it is an incredibly important thing to think about when we're thinking about computer-mediated communication. And from a practical standpoint, but also just, I think it is changing our idea of what privacy is in the first place. That idea itself is sort of in flux, which is one of the reasons why, it says the paradoxes of privacy, because oftentimes we feel, at least this is the way I read the paradox, hey, it's freeing and liberating. We're learning so much stuff that we would not know otherwise, yet we are giving information that perhaps we should not be giving out, or doing things we should not be doing. And then it sort of moves about how it tells the reader here that we need to realize, particularly when we're not thinking about privacy issues, that companies are using our information. They're selling it to make money. If you go on Facebook and do those little quizzes or whatever, and they ask, can we get your friend? They're making money off of you. So sometimes we need to understand that. And also, again, there are contexts where certain sites, people tend to be more open on certain sites than they are in other sites, depending on how they perceive the function of the site. For instance, you're not going to put the same stuff on LinkedIn that you're going to put on Facebook or even Twitter. It sort of depends. Okay, so they have this sort of set up in the book, and then they move on to the big-time theory that they want to explain and apply to computer-mediated communication in this particular chapter. So we are on the next slide here, 1, 2, 3, 4 now. And this big theory is known as communication privacy management theory, or as all the cool kids say, CPM. But as I say in the slide, do not get CPM confused with CMC or SNS. OMG, LOL. And etc. And the theory is very social scientific, it's very sciencey, and a lot of social scientific research grows out of survey research and all of that various epistemologies that grow out of that social scientific way of thinking, scientific method, experimentation, and all that type of stuff. So, and I don't know all the methodological stuff, but basically what this theory tries to predict is how people make decisions about what to include or not include in their computer-mediated communication. And why do they decide to be public here, private here? Well, so that's basically what it is. But so it gets sort of complicated, but really communication privacy management as a theory is how do we manage our info as we put it out there. So, because when it's here and nobody else knows it, I guess it is private. But once it's out there, it ain't private no more. So, what is, next slide just has a picture of a nutshell, because I'm going to tell you what CPM is in a nutshell. I'm in a nutshell. Okay, some basic information before we get to some of these larger principles or ideas. First, there is this understanding or this thinking that people manage their private information like they would their property. We feel like we own our information. And I say, just like a, I skipped to the next one. Never mind. Back up. I'm a slide ahead. I'm so forward thinking. Okay, so basically this slide, what it says is that CPM basics, basically it's just about how people manage their private information.